Hey, I am Gabriella Laughingbrook. I'm in Huntersville, North Carolina, and this is your first invitation to the first show for a channel called Altar of the Moon. I figured since we're going to be spending all this time together that we should get to know each other. I'm going to go first. Um, I am originally from Western Massachusetts, and my grandmother and father uh, started out in Chelsea, Massachusetts, which is not too far from Salem and the whole bustling magic and history of New England, especially in witchcraft traditions. But I'm here now. I'm in the South, and I've been practicing 42 years now. Um, and that has taken many forms. I started out in Dianic traditions, and then I did a whole bunch of eclectic witchcraft. And I've worked with several different others, whether those are ancestor spirits, gods, goddesses. I allow for there to be a natural evolution of what my magic is conjured for, what my needs are, whose magic would be best for whatever objective it is that I am working toward. Um, but I'm doing this channel because I was asked by Harold Sanford Carter III to have a show that is educational. Um, as you know, we do not have any institutions of higher education for people who want to really spend their lives um, in their craft, in their magic, whatever the traditions are, pre Abrahamic faith, pre Christian faith, um, even old Mesopotamian and Sumerian, like going back to the ancient traditions of magic. Um, I have a master's degree in education, so building curriculum from scratch that doesn't exist for us um, is really my driving force right now. The leadership of the country is questionable at best, um, and I know that there's going to be a lot of widespread suffering and fear. And I could not sit back and do nothing or say nothing. It's just not how I'm built. So I created a people, um, Temple Hecate, Altar of the Moon, and you know that the channel is called Altar of the Moon. Temple Hecate represents all types of different magic practiced. For some, they're there for the academic and the learningness of the thing. For others, they are attracted to the temple because of the wide variety of service projects um, that we have. And I did it because I have a sneaking suspicion that we're not going to be well kept and taken care of the regime that is currently in the White House. I had a podcast previous to this, and it's called Incantation Nation. And the very first episode of that podcast was recorded the night that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed. Um, and now here we are, some years later, and for the first time, I'm on camera doing a YouTube channel, and it's not an accident. I know there are people and practitioners and occultists, heathens, you know, priests and priestesses and witches in general who don't know that they will be taken care of by any type of governmental body. So it occurred to me that one of my skills is organization and education. that I could create a, I was going to say rebel base, but kind of actually resistance movement, but that we were going to need something of our own, as in a pagan slash witch social services, um, because we're going to need to take care of our own. The ugliness is already started. It's in my inbox. It's, you know, recorded. I get messages, and the fear and the anger and hatred coming towards us is probably going to get worse. And I'm not here to be an alarmist. I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely my intention to create things by witches for witches so that we can keep each other, keep an eye on each other and stay in contact and have options or resources or services out there that we can connect to. I don't feel okay about anyone feeling lonely or falling through the cracks or feeling invisible or silenced. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So, Altar of the Moon channel is the same magic as Temple Hecate, Altar of the Moon, and it has to do with diverse topics that help you both reclaim your heritage, as well as explore your infinite potential. How this channel will be if there is a topic that you would like to explore or learn about, you need only message me and say, "Hi, I'd like a class on Enochian magic," or "Hey, what can I do with these pelts and fangs and teeth and bones?" Because there's a class for that. Um, I'm a curriculum writer. I have a bunch of college degrees, and my gift is to envision and create services and resources that I see lacking. Um, so I will come up with regular class topics. If you turn every week, you will have something new. I have a couple classes lined up after this, um, and they're going to be diverse. And I really want to, you know, get into the weeds and show you what there is. And I hope, my hope is that it will pique your curiosity and that you will start thinking about, well, I want to learn more about, astral travel, or um, the pitfalls of doing magic with family. Just kidding. Just kidding. So that's why the temple exists. This is why the channel exists. It's also why the podcast existed. And if you find that you want to hear more of the podcast, we can do that too. It has its own focus. Um, but we've already talked about my education. So there's cultural anthropology, linguistics, and comparative world religion, along with another degree in curriculum design and higher education. Um, I my path, like I said, has been diverse, and I still explore others to work with and other paths to follow. I am absolutely intrigued by your all's paths, because they are diverse and because they bring meaning to you. And I want to expand that and serve that curiosity, as well as I want to hear back from you to see if there's something about your practice that intrigues me, and that we can start a dialogue together and have conversations. I love questions. I'm much more comfortable with questions. Lecture format is not my fave. We can certainly do that. Um, but until I have guests on the show, and there will be guests on the show, um, it'll be me and my big brain. And I want to create in your hearts intrigue and curiosity and a sureness of self, um, because I want to harden us as a target for the oppression and aggression and violence promised to us um, by the current presidential regime, such that, when we go out into the world, other people, other pagans or witches or occultists can see us out in the world taking care of ourselves, following our paths, donating our time, interacting and preserving our people, because you're role modeling. I'm role modeling. Speaking up honestly and very publicly about what it is we value and what it is we practice is tremendously important to me, not simply because of our ability to exchange, but also because you will walk through the world. You already walk through the world breathing and radiating the magic that makes your heart sing. And I want to see that. I want the world full of magic that you all bring, so that when I finally graduate to the next level, um, into the spiritual, I can leave knowing that we have loosed into the world a whole hell of a lot of pagans, witches, occultists, heathens, um, out there holding it down for religious and spiritual diversity. Um, I will feel better about that. And I want to leave a world that has as many resources and services available as we can possibly muster. Um, so the temple serves that purpose. The podcast serves that purpose. Um, I guess I've been called militant witchcraft. You know what? Fine, we'll take it. We'll do that. Um, and I guess I'm just the visibility person. I don't shy away from public speaking. Activism is coded in my DNA. Magic is my potential, my future. Um, and also, I want you to appreciate the heritage that you have in terms of magical practice, because you can better choose a path to go forward on if you have a strong foundation in what your history is, what was important to your, how can we say this, indigenous religions, whether that's um, the Germanic world and Germanic history, whether that's Scandinavian, whether it's Celtic or Anglo-Saxon, British, Southern European, in terms of all kinds of Mediterranean magics. You are not pigeonholed. You have options, and there's nothing wrong with learning as much as you can, because you will encounter pieces of practice and concepts and attitudes towards your magic that you might want to try on, that you might want to practice and do deep dives and research. And I think we have to do that as a people, because we don't have a strong connection to our history. And there are reasons for that. There's reasons why the Vatican is the single largest owner of pagan reliquary and history and texts and scrolls and artwork on the planet. Because if they have it, you don't. So I am here to use my training to recover that magic, write some curriculum around it, and give that to you. That's what I want. And I take requests. Um, why is my head shaved? It's going to be one of the first questions I get. Um, some years ago, actually, it was 2019. I had a shop in the center of Huntersville, North Carolina, called Laughing Brook Spellcrafting in Ancestral Arch. And it was a phenomenon. I had no idea that our people needed a community drop-in center, because that's what it became. We had events there, we had classes there, we had fundraisers there. We focused almost exclusively on natural magics and books and ancestral art forms. And what I mean when I say ancestral art forms is that they are artisan art craft um, that has been practiced for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I'm going to have to put up some pictures now. I realize that. So I definitely will put up pictures. Um, but it became a phenomenon, and it was clear the amount of fellowship we needed. And I find isolation breeds depression. And we're going to need to take very deliberate steps to stay in contact with each other and keep, informational sharing right in the forefront. Because, like I said, things are not going to get easier for us. And I want there to be a system in place where we can learn our heritage, learn each other's strengths and challenges, practice some compassion with that, develop some restraint to be combative or confrontational. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have been combative in my past because I was angry about the overwhelming lack of resources and knowledge and opportunities to come together. And so I find when I am in that space, I start creating the things that I think we need to connect with each other. Harold Sanford Carter III agrees with that. And I think that his path and my path are similar in that learning is fundamental. Learning is the base of the pyramid, whatever your magic is. But it's easier to find your path if you expose yourself to different options and practices and lore in history. Um, and it's your choice, but I want there to be as much on the buffet table of learning so that you can choose what feeds you. Um, and honestly, if you find what is motivating and sacred to you, then you are healthier in the world. You are stronger in the world. And when you know what you know and you walk your words, you are a lot harder to be made a victim. And if you support that, then you're definitely going to need to stay on this channel. We're going to share some really cool stuff. Okay, so and I'll probably bop around between topics. And at some point, we'll have to get some questions in here because I want to hear what you all are chewing on in terms of, practice and questions and curiosity. But the show is called Altar of the Moon, specifically because we are magicians. And I don't mean that in terms of specific practices. We're not, at the current time, we're not going to talk about John Dee or Enochian magic. That's not what I mean by that. I mean that whether you identify as a witch or a pagan or a heathen or an occultist, you are aware on some level that you are bringing pieces of your craft together from different um, areas, whether that's elemental magic, whether that's ancestor worship, whether you are a sea witch or a kitchen witch or a priest or priestess of a specific cult or deity. The fact is, you are already able to pull together your systems of meaning, because if there's one thing that I know that our community takes very seriously, it is the power of our choices, our self determinism, to be the authority figure on who we are and what we need in our lives, and to go get it. Pagans don't do well sitting on their hands and doing nothing. We put ourselves in places to learn from each other, and it's exciting. And like I said, a healthy practice is a healthy mind. And I want you to have all of that. So we do have academic programs at Altar of the Moon, Temple Hecate, Altar of the Moon. We have a ministry program if you want to counsel the good people in our community. We also have a priestess tradition that has to do with the Eleusinian mystery cults and or schools. Some people trigger on cult. I don't trigger on cult. It's a cult, and I'm cool with that. But the good part about creating or resurrecting a practice such as Hecatean priestesshood is that you can form an educational system of your own to determine what different levels of knowledge are, proficiency and mastery of skills or knowledge. So we can award degrees. So in addition to the priestesshood, the ministry of counseling the pagan community, witch community, we also have the academic programs. And so that would be getting a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and yes, an actual doctorate of divinity. And it's going to be rigorous. I want pagan excellence out in the community. I want witchcraft to be powerful and moving. And as a high priestess in the traditions that I practice, I am responsible to pull together different primary sources, different type of experiences, traditions, to bring in, and also to focus and specialize. But we are able to sit down together, you and I, and your friends, other watchers of Altar of the Moon, and we are able to look at what is on that altar. You know who this is. You know who that is, right? The magician. Now you notice in front of him, there's a table, and on his altar, there is a pentacle, a chalice, a dagger, and a baton, or a staff, a stave. And why that's on there, without getting too, specific, the magician is magical because they can use the different elements and their correspondences to craft new knowledge born of research, gnosis, the way your body feels when you're in your element, so to speak. And I think the reason that witches are intimidating and scary to some degree, I don't mind that. I like scary. Scary is good. Is that we are able to pull together and enlist the magic of our allies, whether that's, like I said before, ancestors or deities and gods and goddesses or elemental beings. Um, we can recruit an army of magic to get in on our objective. And the way that I work is that I sit in ritual and I think about the thing that I need to have blossom, bloom, occur, start happening in my life. And I am specific about what it is that I'm doing. And then I extend an invitation to the others or even to the elements. Like if stones and crystals want to get in on my objective, say I'm looking for a stable employment or vocational system, rocks might answer my call, stones might answer my call because they are edifying, they are foundational. Their magic moves slow, it's predictable, it's stable, it has a very even temperament. And what I say, ask the fire witches what an even temperament means, because there were many chapters of my life where, as a fire witch, I had basically a slash and burn flamethrower type more approach to my magic. And I know that you fire folks are out there going, okay. So understanding that as the magician, we can set our table with things of stability and slow moving and longevity, such as stones. We can add or not even so much fire magic, but if you think about the dagger, and why it is on the altar, yes, it is to flay illusion from truth, but it is also about being, I don't want to say I don't want to say this is like me really practicing my filter right now, but daggers are meant as a tool for both physical damage as well as practical or logistical or even conceptual magic. You are able to concentrate and direct your magic in such a way that your personal edge is sharp. And when you have that mastery, let's just say this, and this ties in perfectly with why the temple exists and why Altar of the Moon exists. It is so you have all of the different elements on your altar of you that you can mix and pull together in ways that help you meet your objectives. So maybe the cauldron of water on my altar, or maybe the essential oils I use, or maybe the lavender hydrosol that I made, it brings with it magic, but there's nuances of difference. But those are correspondences. So when you see the magician card and you see his dagger, his chalice, his pentacle, and his staff, those might mean, for example, the chalice could mean emotionality or being able to flow with the gravity of who you are, right? Because water has one master, and that's gravity. The oceans, the moon, and water have an agreement that they will only answer each other. But what an excellent example for us to consider the power of water magic, right? What is it that you answer to, right? So if water is flowing, it irrigates, right? The same way that emotions will flow. Think about where it is that you naturally focus your magic or even your personality. There are some folks who flex their different elements in their personality type, which would make sense for someone who was very fiery in their youth, very slash and burn, flamethrower, expedient magic, hot magic, enlightening magic. But then it makes sense to counterbalance that when you have a whole bunch of children and you want to be healing and peaceful. Granted, water can be aggressive, sure, but in terms of flow, it answers to a dynamic of you, a major life dynamic in you, which could be not necessarily conformity, um, but accepting the shape or habit or movement through the world that flows around obstacles. Whereas something like, air or earth magic, it flows around that. So there are different connotations for the elements. And I've pulled some other really good examples of cards. Like, for example, okay, let me show you what we're talking about. So this deck that I'm going to show you, this is Grace Duong. That's her name, if you can see it, Grace Duong. And this is the Cosmic Creatures deck. And it's really colorful. It's really bold. And they're tarot cards, but they are not traditional as are the Pamela Coleman Smith and A.E. Waite cards are. So for the Cosmic Creatures deck, their magician is a dragon. And if you think about the balance represented by a dragon in terms of flight, moving air, fire, as in the breath or the expression of soul or spirit, the physical body being the earth element, right? The inspiration or spirit is the creature itself and how it moves in the world. I feel like I'm missing one. Earth, air, fire, water, spirit, water. Maybe you guys could tell me what is watery about a dragon. Granted, they do have a tail that looks like it could be used hydrodynamically. But if we were going to embody the magician, this would be an excellent example of an elemental creature that combines all of those powers, those colors, those temperaments, those areas of expertise. There is another deck that I like to use, and it's by Maggie Stiefvater. She is a New York Times best-selling author, and she has made one of the most intriguing decks I've seen in a long time. So it's called the Raven's Prophecy, and her name is Maggie Stiefvater, right? And everything about her cards has to do with our familiars, our others, in terms of, whether those are, crows, ravens, there's a difference, but we won't go over that today. But the different types of magic embodied in mystical creatures. It's a little different than the Cosmic Creatures deck, but the card for the magician in Maggie's deck is a hand where there is carved symbols of earth, air, fire, and water. Understanding that the spirit of the individual whose hand that is the fifth element and can use their hands to pull together parts of their world to arrange in such a way that they meet their objectives, they get to their goals people around them don't understand how they're pulling it off. And I think that that is a fluency in purpose and a willingness to use spiritual resources, natural elemental resources in the world to satisfy or to meet an outcome, a favorable outcome. Um, and the beauty, the diversity of our community is that my magic is not the same as your magic, but that doesn't mean it's lesser than or better than. Um, Something that the pagan and witchcraft community does really well is sitting and engaging with another person's magic and having respect for that choice, not ramming our magic down someone's throat. You know what I'm referring to, yada, yada, yada. And it literally back to the altar being set not just with elemental powers, but with the appreciation that any of those powers can be substituted for, the animal others that go with those elements, the different colors and directions that goes with those elements. And the altar is the place where we take our will and we mix it with tools, objectives, others, and we use that to craft an outcome. Now, the altar in front of the magician can be anything, but I chose to name the show and the Temple Hecate, Altar of the Moon, because the moon is pretty much, to our level of consciousness, permanent. She has been there. And yes, I understand that she is a he in other cultures. But the fact is, the moon is there every single night. The moon is focused upon by primitive peoples, future peoples, as a beacon for mystery and the what ifs. I mean, and our attraction to night worship and simply seeing her glowing and beautiful, perfectly spherical in our vision, and understanding that the magic of night is very reflective. It's very introspective. It's a place of natural prowess. I mean, even if you think about the way that we were back in college and high school, nighttime is where we went to try out different sensory stimuli. Maybe we go dancing, maybe we go drinking, maybe we have ritual in some way or another. But it's where we met the mystical parts of our lives and where we really got to explore ourselves. And the way is lit by the moon. And whether she is seen or, I don't want to say not seen, when she is new, that too role models going inward and acclimating oneself to their own magic and what they need. So when I say Temple Hecate, Altar of the Moon, that means understanding the moon, the mysteries of her, the nighttime magic of her, is where you place your different magics, whether it's fiery and impulsive, whether it's destructive and emotional, like water can be, whether it's about the incantations that you breathe onto the air, or whether it's, I'm missing one, aren't I? I mean, the moon is moon rock. I mean, it's earth, but it's not earth. And even that just unlocks possibilities in our consciousness that I don't know that other people, it even occurs to them, but I know that pagan people and witch kind are open and receptive to having knowing with a capital K show up in their consciousness from many different non-traditional directions. But exposure and opportunities to learn our own magic, to learn our own habits and temperaments of magic is what we are talking about when we are using the moon as our altar. Are you exploring your magic, your mysteries? What about you shines? What about you is reflective or introspective, right? So, altar of the moon is where it all comes together. And I love the moon. 6 years ago, I took vows as I'm going to say lunar nun. It works. It just stay with me. I had gone through a lot of cataclysmic change in my life. And I realized that I had put all of my magic into someone else and into something else that was not grounded in me. And there was a lot of emotional fallout from those choices. And I wanted to call my magic back. And I knew that I wanted to be a priority. I wanted my magic to be a priority. And so I thought about what that commitment to my magic might look like. And some friends of mine who are elders, who are Gothi types in the Germanic faiths, I sat down with them and I told them, I'm going to shave my head. And of course, their response was, no, don't do that. What that means is, and I said, I'm aware of what it means. Now, mind you, my hair was long, luxurious, and purple at the time. And I got a lot of comments about that. And then I realized if I am grounded in my magic, if I want to believe and focus not on, I'm getting verklempt if anyone speaks Yiddish, I wanted to be of substance and not of just words. And when my friends asked me, do you understand that shaving your head indicates to the kindred that you have been unfaithful? And that, I'm not going to cry, guys. And that you have cheated on someone. They asked me, who have you been unfaithful to? And it was me. It was my magic. And the vows that I took were to marry the moon, symbolically marry my magic, and put my magic first, to elevate our names as gods and goddesses, to pursue our magic, and let the beauty of that establish a core belief of competency as human beings and authority figures on what it is that we believe, what it is that constitutes our knowing with a capital K. So I shaved my head completely. And that was 6 years ago. And every month, the act of the ritual of shaving my head and giving that sacrifice to the moon, that sacrifice to my magic is all that I need to focus me on finding ways to connect, to create systems of meaning. Um, it's, yeah, so I'm a moon wife. And so you will hear me say that I am not, the moon is not my wife. I am hers. I am her wife. I am wedded to magic, and I am wedded to the fullest expression of myself. And honestly, if it were to be distilled down into one point, I would say that the only thing that you owe the world is the fullest expression of yourself. Can you imagine that? Everyone walking around self-actualized and answering their curiosities and exploring themselves in different settings and capacities. That makes you a really hard target for any false gods that currently run the country and has global influence. I want us to have global influence. And that means knowing where we come from, the heritage of magic, the religions and spiritualities created by our peoples thousands of years ago. When we have that foundation, we can set the world on fire. And I'm ready for us to pick up that work and do that. So my hair is an offering. The vows I have taken are to myself as a priority, to my magic, and to alleviating as much suffering as I can in our communities by giving you the pieces you need to become, or even to refine that skill in listening to the everything. You'll hear me say stuff like knowing with a capital K and the everything with a capital E, because to use nuanced words doesn't, it gets too dicey, too detailed. And I want us to think about large dynamics, just as there is the major arcana represents large life dynamics, whereas the court cards and the pip cards represent details and people and, influences. But the dynamic of your magic is, it has to be answered, it has to be explored. And when you do that, you are a hard target for someone else's victimizing of you. And I'm the youngest of four. I live for being difficult. um, and I think we all need that. I think we all need that. And we need to let others catch us being loyal to ourselves, being fierce on our own behalf. Um, willfully going out into the world to search and find ourselves and give us the moments, the opportunities to explore who we are. And isn't that what we want younger generations to see? When previous generations, up until now, have really locked their power into the idea of inserting themselves between spirituality and systems of meaning and ourselves. I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. I'm here to set the buffet table, and what you put on your plate, you put on your plate. And it makes you complex and engaging and intriguing and curious. And I think that's a lot more healthy than being divorced from our magic, from being divorced from all these other systems of knowing that we can create meaning with, folding it into our personal practices, and cultivating that healthy appetite for different experiences. And that comes from also having conversations with other practitioners, and even the new practitioners and the old heads who've been in the game for decades. There's a lot that can be gleaned from someone else's personal practice. Yes, you may come to Temple Hecate and be in ritual with 100 other people, but you also have a personal practice where, in the quiet of your mind and in the quiet of your own space and in the amnios of darkness, you can explore who you are and what your magic looks like in the quiet of your mind. Actually, let me say that differently, because my mind is seldom quiet. But you are in a place of self, and I want to make connections, and I want those connections to show us their full beauty. Yeah, the moon is our altar. The empowerment of craft and understanding that we all have the moon, and she is mystery, and she is the altar upon which we put our different skills and powers and desires for objectives to be met, or even just to contribute our magic to the universe. I mean, I think there is a bad habit on the part of Americans to believe that magic is transactional. It is not. But again, it's a very American notion that I burned the candle, I lit the thing, I poured the vat, I made the offering. Where's my result? No, is what I'm going to tell you. That's not how that works. Now, can altar tools and other resources be the metaphor that you use? Yes. And so I believe that in terms of altar tools, even if your mind, even if you possess nothing in terms of physical tools, you have the concepts of stability, impulsiveness, emotionality, and logic that you can fold in ways to form your magic and release your objective into the world, right? And it doesn't distract from the purpose if you have the physical, tangible parts of magic, altar tools, because for each practitioner there is a different connotation with those things. And maybe if our focus is on the tangible object that we are touching and feeling upon, contemplation of those magics, some folks need that. They need the tangible objects to get in touch with what magic is represented by that tool. I don't see it as, I've been practicing for 42 years. I don't need any of this stuff. I just, sit in the shower and do my mental magic. Okay, cool. But not everyone. So listen, can we be honest about jars and hoarding and stuff? Baskets, little boxes and shit. I mean, right? I mean, witches, pagans, goddesses, whoever. We need all the things. We want all of the things. We need the things. But the way, for example, earth magic is represented in skull and bone, as opposed to earth magic related to, stones and crystals. There's a difference there between organic and animalian magic and millions of years of integrating and crystallizing. So there are nuances. So I personally love this stuff. All of the things and the jarses. Because you never know when you're going to need to stuff somebody in a little jar, pour a little piss and vinegar in there and shake frothily. I mean, I've never done that. I've done it. I've done it. Done it. Okay. So, what I will tell you is that witches, pagans, our I want us to reacquaint ourselves with our strengths. I want us to really tap in, and there will be concepts that we explore, such as things like S-bats and Sabbats, one being, um, you know, just words like lesser Sabbat, S-bats, and things like low magic being practical magic and high magic being ceremonial magic. We are going to have those discussions, and we're going to tease out the nuances between what those things represent and in what context words like that originated. You know, kitchen magic being practiced at home, and then to have a ceremonial magic practice as in high art, there is a power disparity there. There is a condescension of craft. And I'm not here for that either. But we're going to explore that shit so that we can see the energy and power dynamics and the fact that some are allowed privilege with that and some that are held at disadvantage with that. And I think we need to examine a lot of the structures, not just in ourselves or personal practice, not just in the traditions themselves, but in the larger context, the world that we occupy. There's a lot of shit that needs tending to. And there's a lot of institutions and practices that need gut-wrenching examination. And we need to put ourselves in a position of humility to accept those lessons and understand the power paradigm of have and have nots, and really focus on reciprocity, exchange. I'm instantly redirected to the concept of Gebo, the rune that looks like an X. And it is about exchange, an agreement between souls. It is feeding others but being fed, and the magic there is strengthening, fortifying. It's beautiful. It represents success when there is a flow between different elements of our lives. But I want us to see, and I'm going to give you a phrase, and I want you to chew on this until next time. Which is a verb. Mm-hmm. Let it in. Which we have been told is a religion of a person that is a system of meaning, very often condescended, very often attacked, very often persecuted. But what I want to shift focus is from the identity of being witch and moving to a space of witching, because I think that now is the time. It is 2025. The world has changed, and this country has changed. And not only do we need examination, we need the change. And witch is a verb. Witch that shit. Witch it. Bewitch it. Witch it. Right? Be the change you want to see in the world. We've heard that phrase before. But it is about moving from a place of nauthies or need into a place of contribution and exchange, honoring the humanity in each other, sharing best practices, sharing the evolution of self, sharing the actualizing that we're doing, acting on behalf of our own best interest. That's an excellent and healthy role model, right? Because don't we want the next generations to be in tune with that and to know how to put ourselves in situations and contexts to do learning, right? Now, I'll be honest, the way my spirit is set up, especially as an adolescent, I learning my approach to learning was much was much like being struck between the eyes by a two by four. If it wasn't like like combustion, if it wasn't this huge knock me back type lesson, man, I missed all the subtleties. I missed them all. Every single one of those subtleties. It didn't occur, man. I was thinking other thoughts. So, but for some, which being a verb is going to pull us out of some comfortable places, pulling us out of low risk into risk. Why? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but it is also necessary for our health, for the health of the planet, for the intermixing of our peoples and ideas and concepts. It's a buffet table out there. Yeah. So I did want to share a couple things that Temple Hecate is getting into, because we really believe a lot in partnerships and learning how to partner. We have a couple different projects because, like I said, I like to walk my words. I am all about compassion and restraint because hothead. Yeah, I shaved my head so I could be a hotter head. I think that's what happened. One is what we're calling it's called LIA, LIA. And what it is a long table interfaith alliance. And it is a group of individuals, Christians, pagans, witches, Mormons, whoever sees that there is a need for exchange and collaborative efforts and having hard conversations. There needs to be recognition of millennia of wounds and pain and sacrifice and struggle that needs to be brought to the fore. And LIA, Long Table Interfaith Alliance, is a combination of people whose different identities have been oppositional in the past, which is just so unnecessary, man. The posturing, the I know more than you, I'm holier than thou. Just stop. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. So LIA is us coming to each other's events. It's us sharing remorse and change. And I told my children this, I say this a lot in my practice, that an apology is a combination of remorse for what has happened, as well as a commitment to change. It is not an apology. If you just say, sorry, one, I'm not convinced you feel remorse. And two, if you don't change the behavior, your apology is nothing. It's vaporous and worthless. And we're not doing it. So the Long Table Interfaith Alliance is about us sitting down with each other and not simply having the hard discussions, but also thinking about different actions we can take. And then the last part of that would be evaluation of those actions we can take so that we can hone our skills and create best practices. Now, this came up, and you know what? I think I'm going to have him on the show. I think that would be awesome. A very dear friend of mine named Cody Stiles, Brother Kodiak, one of my favorite people. He and I had a conversation about reparations between Christianity and the pre-Christian religions. And when we talk, we talk. And he made suggestions about showing remorse and what that could look like. And I said, well, if we anticipate a conversation, we can have the conversation, but we need to show up for each other. And so what we came up with, we also have, we've enlisted another pagan who is a musician. Yes, Lou, we're talking about you, Lou Guru. Because music is a reflection of where we are emotionally, where we are politically, where we've been, carries on traditions of magic, and it's just laden with beautiful, expressions of self. Cody is a musician. I am a singer, and incantation, or the singingness of the spells, is big, and it will feature largely in this group, and I'm excited. But the long table in the Scandinavian faiths represents communion and coming together and sharing a meal and feeding ourselves, both physically and intellectually and emotionally. And so we came up with an idea, a direction. Frequently, when pagans, witches, we have festivals or big gatherings, there's always someone that wants to come along and save us from perdition. There's sometimes picketers, sometimes there's people with pitchforks and torches and shit. And it's hard to deal with that. There's an interruption of vibe. There is a change in how we celebrate when there's someone out there threatening us or wanting to pollute our rituals with their negativity and poison and venom and all that other stuff. So I asked Cody how he would feel about creating a team of feral folk, his wilderness pastors. Oh my God, I can't wait to show him to you guys. Having a team of individuals, Christians, who would show up and stand on the perimeters, on the boundaries of our gatherings and festivals and rituals and celebrations and clean up their mess. I had an ancient elder. I'm not sure he wasn't some variety of God form. He was old. And we had a conversation. And when I talked about the ways in which witchkind and pagans have been hurt by the murdering of our people, the murdering of our culture, he said to me, it's our mess, and it has to be us that cleans it up. And so Cody and his folk are going to assemble a team that will come and stand on the perimeter of our rituals and celebrations and handle any type of raw garbage that comes out of the mouth of irreverent people, ones who don't understand at all the sanctity and meaning of ritual and gathering and exchange. And that's something I've never seen before in my life. And yeah, my phone cut me off. battery, storage, blah, 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 technology. Okay, so back at it. Um, we had spoken about Leah. We had spoken about the switchboard and being connected to each other. Because if it all falls down, we're going to need access to each other. Um, but gatherings in Gastonia, North Carolina, in the United States, on September 13th, Saturday, we will have our second annual Hearthfire Festival, where we come together for public ritual and classes, and we have a whole ass vendor village, and just really good magic. Lots of exchange, ideas, phone numbers, buying cool stuff. I love handmade artisan craft. By pagans for pagans, right? So that's happening on September 13th. Don't mind the air conditioning coming on. I'm going to talk right over it. So that's happening. And if you have questions about the Long Table Interfaith Alliance, the Switchboard, the Hearthfire Festival, or anything that's offered through Temple Hecate, you can get a hold of me at templehecate at Gmail, but I'm also on Facebook Messenger. I have a team of technological types that are going to take over the socials because I can't organize groups and write this stuff and keep track of all of that. So they're going to help me with that. I just bring the talent. Okay, so more about you. I want you to see your healing in moments, right? It's not going to happen all in one fell swoop. Growing into our muchness is not going to happen in one fell swoop. If we change our expectation to one of, having moments, epiphanies of change, moments of healing, moments of inspiration, then we allow for a lot more room to get it wrong. Because guess what? We get it wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you can, if you accept first episode, part 3, we're going to get this ironed out. Please forgive me. But again, perfection happens in moments, right? Healing happens in moments. Inspirations, happen in moments. And we need to be human with each other. This expectation of perfection and leadership without flaws, that is a recipe for disaster. You are human. So am I. We're going to screw it up from time to time. But if we link together these moments, these breathless moments of learning and feeling and understanding and creating, we will get our magical hygiene in order, our mental health in order, our willingness to be enthusiastic about learning. The better off, the healthier we are. And we can truly see magic measured in the lives of people we love, whether or not we know them person to person. So what I would like to do is close out this first episode with, because I write, not just curriculum, but I write a lot of stuff. Back in 2017, I wrote a piece about our place in the universe. And I wanted that to be shared with you so that you can see yourself in maybe a different way and approach your magic in a different way, but also to trust in yourself that you will put experiences and epiphanies and resources on your path and you will make your path your own. And so this piece is about that path. So if you want to close your eyes, we can do this as a guided visualization, or you can just vibe with it as a piece of poetry. You ready? I'm ready. It's called Snake, Hare, Toad, and Crow. I perceived I stood in a field mid-morn, yet the sun hid from my sight. A mist gathered low and had hushed all things, and all turned gray in this light. Cloaked was I, but drew back my hood, for at first thought myself to be alone. But nay, I yet shared what felt a dream with stang, knife, bowl, and stone. What magic to work, or could, perhaps, from this place forward, I thought. Close my eyes, or move, or stay and surge, which was the path that I sought. Aha, yes, this path leads east, the red path towards the sun. By the whip of fire, an act of will, results found there, well won. But white was the south road toward the standing stones, and from it watched the hare. Stealth sentry of time, great keeper of secrets, survival and wealth dwelt there. From the gray path westward, the murk waters led, past toad and cauldron and well. Like the ink of old magic, through shadowy servants, ages spent cunning their spells. But there, the north road, haunted by spirits, black specters drift and the dead hail. Incantations to others, the censer smokes offerings, black wings unseen sweep the veil. A snake from the east had encoiled in my bowl. Your choice awaits, says she. Full use of these tools makes magicians of fools. Step forward, commit, and you'll see. Shamed of them not, my flaws, nor my fear, for they be the sworn guardians of growth. To commit to known paths was not what I chose, instead, held aloft my oath. No path has been trod to the place in between, like the challenge that none have dared task. But I stand in this place to lure fate to the chase. From the luminous dark, we four ask. To seek out the tools that are not yet ours, to cut paths where the weaker minds fear. 'Tis the pursuance of self that sets us apart. No path but the new one as clear. It has been my honor to share this past little while with you today, and I hope to see you back here next time. And if all hearts and minds are clear, we are adjourned. Altar of the Moon. See you next time. Sorry about that. What I was saying was that victimization and power tripping and suppression and oppression of people is easier done when the people you are oppressing are separated from each other and coming together, being made aware of how these powers that be are moving in the world is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. And so what we've created is a what I call a switchboard. See what I did? Switchboard. Um, but basically, folks from different zip codes around the country. I've even got a couple of folks in the UK that give us perspectives on what's happening in their countries. Have some Canadian witches. I mean, witches are everywhere. But basically, how it works is that we take your zip code and we list you as a contact point, and the temple will contact you to find out, what's the ground movement, what's being spoken about in public forum, um, and the flow of information, and whether or not that's feeling restricted or free flowing, ground being made, decisions being made in and out of courtrooms, or governmentally without courtrooms, just doing a whole bunch of illegal shit. Um, but the switchboard is connecting all of us so that we know what's happening on the ground and that we have ways to access each other. And again, I prefer to be prepared as opposed to caught behind the eight ball. And before things get really, really bad, they're bad, but they could be worse. I would rather take this moment, this breath in time, to get email addresses, cell phone numbers, friending each other on Facebook, as well as documenting folks' physical address. Because if the cell towers fall, if the internet crashes, we're still going to need to find each other, gather together, and render our judgment on how things are being handled, and then insisting upon change. So, um, basically, you would only be responsible for knowing what's up in your zip code. And for larger areas, I would prefer, like, for example, for New York City, I have some folks on board, but New York is a big place. And so it's preferable that we have a couple folks from each town or city or zip code